I would like to take the first minute of the video to appreciate Snow Globe Emily now being all French with her beret. Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be the last video in my end of the year series for 2019. It's been so much fun. I will link down below all the other ones. So the best, worst, most disappointing, and most surprising books that I've read this year. But today I'm going to be doing everything like genre-wise, best short books, big book, all of those weird fun categories, just going through more books that I can talk about. I did ask you on Twitter if you wanted me to stick to one book only that I can not repeat in each question, or if I could just do free for all. And I kind of got mixed responses, so I decided what I'm going to be doing is that whenever I start the video, I will be sticking to do not repeat any book ever. And then when I go to like best magic system, best world building, best you know what, I will be able to repeat some books because some of them just deserve all the hype, all the love, because they're just the best. So the books that I've talked about in details in my other videos, I will not go in as much detail just for time saving sakes because I have about 30-40 categories to go through. I'm very excited. So I will be able to finally talk about some of the other books that didn't make it quite to my best, worst, etc. So let's go through all of them. Oh, and by the way, this is my first year doing this video, so if you have any recommendation, any question, any categories you would like me to add or remove, I guess, please feel free to leave them in the comment section, and next year we shall do just that. So, first category is going to be Best Contemporary Book. Not my main genre, but I mean, nobody's going to be surprised, but A Little Life. This book really took me by surprise, and I actually cried, so if I did a category about which book made me cry, this one, I literally was bawling, which never happens to me. I feel like I'm always so heartless. Everyone is always like, oh, I care so much about all the characters. They literally like have a personality in their head. They could be friends with them. And I'm like, what? But here I am bawling myself for like a week trying to finish this book. So yay, it was great. Favorite nonfiction, Becoming by Michelle Obama. She was the one narrating it, which should also get a special mention for best audiobook just because, I mean, her voice, she's amazing, and it's her book about her life. So obviously it was great to listen to that one. So best nonfiction is definitely that one. Best mystery thriller horror, I just mushed them all together as always. It was kind of a difficult choice because realistically speaking, none of them ended up becoming a 5 stars for me. I haven't been that lucky in the last 2 years, I feel like, with those books. A lot of them are like quite overhyped and quite disappointing, really. But my favorite was a 4 star, so it still, you know, deserved that mention. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. Summer camp, it was great. Definitely recommend reading it during the summer because of that, but that one is the winner. The categories I am dreading. Best fantasy. You're gonna notice that there's gonna be a lot of mention of the Ancestor trilogy by Mark Lawrence and the Nevernight trilogy by J. Kristoff. I just loved both series so much. Obviously, both of them made it to my best of 2019, and they have a lot of similarities. So like amazing world building, amazing magic system, amazing story, amazing literally everything. So I am constantly hesitating. I'm gonna name these two for the whole video. Let's just say it. Let's just say it. But if I have to choose a favorite best fantasy of the year, I'm gonna go with the Ancestor trilogy by Mark Lawrence. Oh, it hurts. Choosing is hard. But yeah, Mark Lawrence, congratulations. You win. Probably will never watch this video, but you win. Best sci-fi. Oh, this is also very difficult. I have read so many amazing sci-fi books this year. Like, I believe actually more great sci-fi than fantasy, which is kind of crazy. And I've been having so much fun shoving sci-fi down everyone's throat because y'all need to read more. But if I have to choose, you know what? Just between the time of filming and then editing the video, I decided to change my mind because it was just so difficult. But I'm going to go with Recursion by Blake Crouch, which I'll talk about more in another question. But yeah, I think this is the one that is the most like accessible. So yeah, Recursion. Best YA fiction. I didn't read a lot this year, so I kind of have to choose like the best one in the few that I have read. It would have to be Radio Silence. To be completely honest, it's not like a 5 stars for me, and it's not something I'm completely obsessed with, but it's something that I think is worth the hype if you are into YA contemporaries. Best YA fantasy or sci-fi, who's gonna be shocked here? Skyward, Brandon Sanderson. Hells yeah. If you're also looking for a best like funniest book that I've read, also the one I would choose. It's just so freaking good. I can't recommend this enough. You need to read this if you still haven't. And then finally, I have best romance, which a lot of you are gonna be like, dude, you don't even read romance. I know, however, I do have a favorite romance because it's a fantasy with a romance, but it's a novella and I find that it's quite romantic and it's definitely my favorite. Bound by Mark Lawrence. It's like 2.5, I guess. It's a novella between the second and third book in the Ancestor trilogy, and oh, am I shipping these two characters. You know what? Let's make it a mention right now because it would have been a category later on. So the characters I ship the most, I'm not going to spoil it because obviously it's the 2.5 book, but these characters, I am shipping them hard. Best debut author that is new to me this year. I'm trying to like make it specific. I wanted to talk about Miracle Creek, the author being Angie Kim. I really enjoyed this one. If you like literary fiction and with like a mystery in there, I would definitely recommend this one. I'm always comparing her to Celeste Ng simply because Celeste Ng is super popular and I feel like they're actually everything is similar, their writing style especially, but also that I believe in both cases they always have like a Korean immigrant family, or at least, you know, an immigrant family, and there's like some type of mystery and again literary fiction. So if that's your jam, you definitely need to check her out. It was a good surprise for me. I definitely feel like she needs to be more raved about. I don't think her book ended up being that high in the Goodreads Choice Awards, so I definitely feel like it deserves more hype. Best big book. Again, I don't want to repeat anything that I've said, so I wanted to give a special mention to The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I was actually also surprised by that one. It was my first time reading something by her. I knew that she was popular as a white author, but this is an adult book and I really enjoyed it. So much background into world building. I have to say it did feel like it was, what, 800, 900 pages? It felt like a trilogy in one book, but I'm not going to complain because I hate whenever authors or more like publishing companies tend to stretch stories to come out with more books and make more money. So I was very, very happy that everything was in one book. It was just a very interesting world and I did enjoy it overall. I do think the weakness was the ending. I feel like the epic battle that you're waiting for is like too quick to happen. Like it just... and you're like, okay. I just thought that it was a really great big book and it deserved a mention if I remove the other ones I've already mentioned. So best short book. Again, I don't want to re-mention Bound, so I would have to go with my like second place and it would have to be The Test by Sylvain Nevel, which that really took me by surprise also. It's messed up, let's just say it. I've been kind of saying that if you're someone that likes Black Mirror and you want like a, you know, a little short novella to go through that kind of similar, I would go with this one. I believe the author was inspired by everything that's been going on in Europe, and essentially a character has to go through a test to try and become a UK citizen, and things become really intense really fast, and it was good. So I think I'm gonna end this right here for the do not repeat the same book, and at this point it's a free-for-all. I can name the same book 50 times if I want to, which is so going to happen. Best standalone of 2019, A Little Life. Oh, come on. I have to. I haven't cried this hard reading a book in forever. I haven't cared this much about characters in forever. Definitely trigger warning for everything. Again, it was part of my best of 2019, but yes, best standalone for sure. Best series. I still can't choose between the Ancestor trilogy and Nevernight trilogy. They're just so similar. They both have like a magical school, amazing magic system, amazing characters that I really cared about, and they were like so complex. And actually in both cases, the third book was the weakest one in the trilogy, but like I really enjoyed both of these. But I feel like Nevernight has been getting a lot of hype on BookTube, probably because Kiara did a amazing 3 videos about like the first part of the first book. Definitely recommend checking that out if you are interested. So because Nevernight is really popular, I'm gonna rave about the Ancestor trilogy, the first book being Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, and you need to read this. I feel like I don't hear enough people talk about this, and this is like amazing. Again, as I always like to recommend it, badass magical nuns. Best cover. I wanted to mention something I haven't talked about actually in any video, so that's great. The Last House Guest, which that cover, I just can't do it justice by a picture because you're seeing, you know, the little beach town through a window, but the little raindrop that you're seeing in person on the cover, it's 3D, and I don't know, it just speaks to my soul, and I can't deal, and I'm just very excited every time I see it. It just is kind of relaxing to look at, just gonna say it. Special mention also to the UK edition of Skyward, because look at that, how freaking amazing is this? I love it. I don't care for the US one, I always say that, but the UK one, amazing. The book that has the best twist slash the most unputdownable, is that a word? It is now. Recursion, Blake Crouch. Hells yeah. Hells yeah. I have a complicated relationship with Blake Crouch. He's totally not aware of it, but I love his newest stuff. Do not care for his oldest stuff. But Recursion is amazing. If you don't really care about, like, you know, prose being pretty and that stuff, you really need to check out his books, because they tend to be a thriller sci-fi, which is like a mix I adore. And this one is just amazing. The second half blew my mind. I was so happy that it became better and better as the book was going through. And I feel like usually one of his weaknesses is the characters, like the depth. And I was feeling that in the beginning, and then it just went way better towards the end. So once again, Recursion, best twist, and definitely unputdownable. Biggest surprise, I think I'm gonna go with In an Absent Dream by Shauna Marie. I had mentioned how I was not going to continue reading the series, the Wayward Children series, because I didn't really care about where this was going. Like, it was just kind of, you know, fluff for me. And I decided to pick up the fourth book because for once I was the first one at the library online, like everything was available, and I was like, hey, it's available. It's like 100 something pages. Let me just read it. And so freaking good. So good. Finally. I still have the same issue that because it's a, you know, a novella, you skip most of the action, which is like kind of frustrating because you're reading like, so then after they killed, you know, the queen, and you're like, no, I want to know how they did that. So obviously that's part of the, you know, novella thing. With that said, writing, actually, you know what? At the same time, best writing, it would have to be this one and A Little Life. But In an Absent Dream, amazing writing. It just, you know, when you read something and it just speaks to you, it just flows nicely, you just can't deal. This is what it is for me, this one. So definitely sold me to the point that I will be picking up book 5, which I didn't think I was going to even pick up book 4. So definitely a big surprise, definitely recommend it. It was great. Most overhyped. Out of all the overhyped book that I read this year, because again, I did talk about a lot of them in my most disappointing slash most overhyped book that I've read. If I have to choose one, I have to mention at least two, at least. If I have to choose the one that won the Goodreads award that I do not agree with, The Silent Patient. Why? Or a classic, Dune. Dune. I'll talk about it later in a different category, but Dune. If I have to choose an author I was the most disappointed with in 2019, I'm gonna have to go with, oh my gosh, I need like an arm or something to protect myself over this, but Leigh Bardugo. This year I read Crooked Kingdom and I read Ninth House, and I was disappointed for both of them. Again, I did go in more details in my most disappointing books, but overall just did not live up to the hype. I feel like I really enjoyed what she did in the Grisha trilogy, like the world building, the magic system. In the Crooked Kingdom, I just felt like the magic system was not used. All that potential just not used. And I care for the characters, but did not care for the heist. And then Ninth House, I listened to it as an audiobook. Good thing, because I would have never finished it otherwise. And it's so annoying because I really wanted to like it. I felt like, again, a lot of potential. But overall, I'm just really disappointed by the author. And again, Ninth House won for the best fantasy, which on a Goodreads Choice Award, don't agree with that. But most disappointing author. That's so harsh, but like, I'm really disappointed. Like, I genuinely wanted to like these, obviously. If I had to choose the most indifferent, I have really complicated feelings about the Raven Boys series. I attempted to read all 4 this year and I stopped after the 3rd one because, again, I like the characters, don't really care about the story, which seems to be something that everyone agrees about, but I'm just left a bit meh about the whole thing. So yeah, special mention, most indifferent. Underhyped. Oh yeah, this is where I shove sci-fi down everyone's throat. Are you ready? Because I have two I want to mention and rave about because damn, so good. And they're definitely the most underhyped on BookTube. I don't necessarily think that overall, you know, when I look at Goodreads, there's a bunch of people that have read those books. They're not new, but I never heard anyone talk about them on BookTube, which is probably because I don't watch enough BookTube videos lately, but still, you need to. Spin. Yeah, if you like sci-fi, you need to read this. There are a lot of really interesting concepts in there that I don't want to actually really talk about too much because I feel like it kind of ruins the surprises. If you like sci-fi, hard sci-fi, you need to check that out. I'm gonna just say that it begins with you're following 3 different characters and one day they're looking at the stars and then they all disappear. And then you can see their lives and how it affects them, like if they try to, you know, just go on a crazy, try to avoid basically all of this, or if they try to focus on learning what happened and everything. And it's just a very, very interesting book. It's definitely character-driven sci-fi, which I feel like is not super common, so definitely would recommend that one. And the other one is The Sparrow, which, oh my god, that book. I've been calling it the sci-fi version of A Little Life, which I don't feel like is as dramatic and sad as intense as A Little Life, because A Little Life, I've been calling it like torture porn, and this one is a little bit less, but still. I also think it's a very interesting twist to a common topic because it is first contact with aliens, but basically they hear something in space and the first team to be sent is actually a team of Jesuits, I think. Basically a religious group, and for once the religious group is not like, oh, aliens gotta kill them all, pew pew. So I thought that was actually interesting, but things are very, very sad, also very character driven, and you just don't know what happened. There's only the priest that comes back and he's just completely changed, shut down, and he's questioning his faith, and it's just a very interesting twist on, you know, first contact with aliens, which is one of my favorite tropes ever. So if I had to choose a best couple, I didn't mention it, the Ancestor Trilogy, OTP, whatever you want to call this. I don't usually care that much about the romance. I feel like there's always like love triangles, and there's a little one here, but you know, whatever. But I really cared about this one. Sue me, it happens. Best magic system, here I am, back hesitating. Nevernight, the Ancestor Trilogy. Nevernight, I like that basically in the first book she learns, she goes to an assassin school and she learns to fight, she learns poison, you know, stealing, all that good stuff, but she's also a Darkin, which means that well, nobody really knows actually what that means, but she has kind of a, I don't want to say a pet, it would so kill me. She has a shadow that follows her, and you know, they talk and they're very sassy and it's funny, and really interesting magic system through that. And then with the Ancestor Trilogy, like I was saying, badass magical nuns, there are technically 4 different types of magics. Some people are just really big and strong, which means the girls actually are muscular, which I always need to mention this because why is it something that is worth mentioning? Doesn't happen ever. Some people, you know, really fast, and like they all have like specific magic powers, and it's just really interesting too. So both of them deserve a lot of love, a lot of hype. Best character development. I'm gonna consider that as within one book because that's one of my pet peeves when someone is like, oh, you just read like all 50 books and the character becomes less annoying. No, I want it to happen in the first book. Skyward, Brandon Sanderson. I don't think the main character is actually supposed to be likable in the beginning, but she definitely, you know, goes through a lot, and then towards the end she definitely becomes a lot better and a lot more interesting. And I really appreciated how for once, you know, a YA book, yes, it's a thick one, but like a lot actually happens. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of fluff. So yes, definitely needed to mention that one. Definitely a character growth that was worth mentioning. Someone asked which character I would date. I'm not really I don't think I read like romance or things like that, so I feel like I don't really fall in love for characters. If I was forced to choose, like, you know, like no choice, Trick, maybe, from Nevernight. I feel like it's a very typical answer, but I'm gonna go with that. But if I have to choose the most wholesome character, see, that is more my thing. Character I would like want to just hug for the rest of my life and just love, Willem from A Little Life. Obviously, if you haven't read that book, I can't. Willem, just talking about it, I want to start crying. Like, I'm not even an emotional person. Like, I don't cry while reading books, but Willem. Absolutely Willem. If I have to choose the funniest one though, I would have to go back to Skyward and mention Mbot, which is technically a spaceship, but an intelligent one, and it's really funny. I really enjoy that one. Also, if you like battles, spaceships, again. Also, every time I need to mention Doomslug because my dude, but yeah. I can't talk about Skyward without mentioning Doomslug. I need to read the second book, like it's happening in January for sure. If I have to choose the most unique world building, I kind of feel like I'm cheating a little bit because I technically finished the last 50 pages of the book this year, but I'm counting it for this year. So I really need to rave about the last book from the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. And holy schmoly, again, super interesting magic system actually. Should have mentioned that too. Because it's a post-apocalyptic world building that is actually a fantasy book. And so unique, and it deserves so much more hype because once again I don't feel like I hear enough people talk about it. The writing style definitely makes it a little bit more complex, especially the first book. There's a lot of you second person and you're like, what am I reading? And there's like back and forth and everything, but it's definitely worth pushing through. But yeah, I'm just gonna not say more, just read it. World building, again, I love that combo of post-apocalyptic and fantasy for sure. Best ending? In a series, definitely not the Ancestor or the Nevernight trilogy. I hate whenever the last book is the weakest in a trilogy. Don't you agree? I feel like it's like, I love you, but damn, I wanted more. Both of them were kind of short and just a bit rushed, I feel like, and I wanted more. So I'm gonna say the end of a book because that's kind of the only, thing I can think of. And I'm gonna go with Skyward by Brandon Sanderson because always, he's just so great at ending his books because usually you get like a big chunk of info and it's not cliffhanger-ish and you're just like, oh my god, like you blew my mind but I want more, but like I'm still not feeling cheated, like sometimes you do. So yeah, Skyward. Worst ending. Where do I begin? I'm gonna go with Luck Every Door by Riley Sager. Yeah. That twist was just... Actually, also a shout out to The Poet X, which is a great audiobook, by the way, if you want to go through it. Because the ending really pissed me off. I am pretty sure the author actually took inspiration from her life, so no judgment, but I hated the ending. Like, I talk about it on my Goodreads review if you want to see it. Like most of these books, I went into a detailed review or made fun of something in a book. So on Goodreads, definitely follow me there. But yeah, you have to click to view the spoiler, but I talk about it. I'm just so pissed still months later. A new favorite author that I started to read this year, I think I'm going to go with J. Kristoff with a big star thingy. How do you call that in English? I don't know. Blame it on the French. Omelette du fromage. And by that I mean like only his adult stuff, because I did attempt to read his YA stuff and no. But I'm very excited. Next year is coming out with another adult fantasy series. I believe it's Empire of the Vampire. And I will read it. If it's anywhere as good as Nevernight, I will be very, very happy. An author that I discovered this year that I'm hoping will come out with more books, the author of A Little Life, because that's literally the only book she's ever written, and I'm like dying. Why her writing? Oh my gosh, please break my heart again. An author I don't want to read from ever again. That's rude. I think I'm gonna do a whole video about this soon, but if I have to choose one, I think I'm gonna go with the author from Watching You, which is, what's her name? Lisa Jewell, I think. Because I have never DNF'd books this fast twice. Actually, I did it last year, and then I picked up that book just because it was available in my library as an audiobook, and I was just, looking for something to listen to. And I listened, I think, to 13% before putting it down. And like, I realized, I'm like, oh, that author's name is like familiar. Let me go check whatever she's written also. And I realized that I did the same thing with another one last year. Like, when she was done, when she was gone, whatever. I don't know, twice. And it's not something I can even really explain. I just feel like her writing just like rubs me the wrong way, I guess. It just kind of, I feel a little icky. That is so weird to just try and explain. Sometimes you watch, I don't know, an actor and you just like, oh, I can't stand them for no reason. That's kind of how I feel about her writing / her books. So I am officially giving up. I will make sure to not read anything else by her, because twice DNF without reading more than like 20-something%. I never do that, like ever. So yeah. Best villain, Marcella from Vengeful, because oh my god, like I feel like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I really like the mean person in that book, and I'm like, okay, it's just a villain to me, whatever. But now I feel you guys, because I love Marcella so much, and she's like introduced from the beginning of the book. That's literally how it starts, and I found myself being like, dude, you're not wrong. I'm actually rooting for you. This is weird, but like, I'm rooting for you. So, Marcella. Some people were actually asking me which book was so bad that it was good. And I can't say I have read a book like that this year. However, if I switch up the question a little bit for something that works better for me, and I transform it to which book do I love to bash? I mean, I feel like that's more like me, right? Salty Emily. I would have to easily go with Dune. If you haven't seen it, once again, if you don't follow me on Goodreads, definitely go check the comment section on that review, because I do my reviews like for myself and like obviously the people that do follow me, but like it's never like a detailed, you know, review, because that's just not my jam. English is my second language, and the weakest part of it is definitely writing, but I kind of just write it to remember, you know, just remind myself a little bit whenever I want to think back about the book and everything. Just a few notes, and it's never detailed. And holy schmoly, people are so salty about my 2 stars. And like, I didn't realize that people were being this, you know, aggressive about the whole thing until I went back, because I was seeing like notification. I clicked and I'm like, wow, so many dudes hate me because, you know, I'm a girl and I didn't like their favorite books, and they're so emotional about the whole thing. So it gets to a point where the more people tell me I'm wrong, the more I'm like, well, I hate it even more now. And I just don't get this, because I did do a video, you know, where I was looking at reviews that are like 1 stars of books that I loved, and I thought it was hilarious to just listen to people bash them to death. And like, yeah, sometimes you're like, ouch, you know, I love that book, but like, never would I take this seriously. Heck, I ended up having like a aluminum hat at the end because people were bashing people for loving sci-fi. So like, I'm fine with this shit, but these dudes are not. So I will definitely do a video about these type of comments, because I get them so much and it makes me laugh. So yeah, Dune is the one I love to bash, and I will forever say that having a sci-fi with everyone and everything being named weird stuff, and then having the main female character being called Jessica, is the most ridiculous shit I've ever read. So I also got the question, which book Snow Globe Emily is the most salty about, and the Kiss Caution. Je peux pas croire que vous avez essayé de me faire lire cette affaire-là. Yark, comme yark. How could you? Or words, not mine. So I think this is going to be it for this video. Again, if you have any recommendations of new categories you would like me to include next year, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I think it could be fun just to talk about more books, basically, because again, I read 100 books this year and they can't all fit in, you know, my best, worst, most surprising, most disappointing. I am planning a bunch of videos with interesting topic for 2020, so definitely don't forget to subscribe. Thumbs up this one if you thought it was fun, entertaining, maybe, hopefully. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and me and French beret, Emily. We'll see you in my next one. Bye.